Recently, the developer From Software released a game called Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. And I'm just going to cut to the chase. I think this is a really cool game, and I just wanted to show off some things that I found in my playthroughs that I thought were pretty neat. Now, this is in no way a comprehensive list. This isn't like crazy stuff that you couldn't have found in your playthroughs. This isn't like VATI level quality or anything. And you know, the internet's pretty thorough when it comes to like anything. But regardless, these are some things that I thought were worth sharing, so here we go. So the first one may be pretty obvious, but it's that Tengu is Isshin Ashina. Now this is one that the first time I played the game, after I had beaten Gyoubu, I immediately ran up into the room where you meet Tengu, and then I had taken out the rats pretty much immediately after that, and then it took me some time to get up through Genichiro. So by the time I had actually encountered Isshin, like the thought of Tengu in my mind was so far removed that I didn't really put it together. So this was a cool one to find out about on New Game Plus. Because mainlining it, you actually find when you come up to Isshin's room, Isshin's letter, which is obviously probably the only evidence you really need to come to this conclusion. But, you know, I'm a dum-dum, so then I went and talked to Emma, and she mentions that he's in a watchtower near Gyoubu's battlefield. So I started checking out all the watchtowers, thinking they were those thinner towers, not this massive structure, and couldn't find him. And so then I started thinking, well, maybe it's down by where Black Hat is, and actually stumbling into him, I found some unique dialogue to give you further hints if you haven't found Tengu yet. So then when I finally put two and two together and figured out that structure was where it was wanting me to go, and that Tengu is Isshin, and then you notice that he's killed a bunch of the Interior Ministry shinobis, which I think we all know about how that went the first time we bumped into one of those guys at that point in the game. Oh, wait a minute. Who this dude? I think I'm done. It just really helps make sense of like, oh, that's how come Tengu's such an OG. The next one is the Great Carp's resting place, which you can find after you give it the truly precious bait. I'm not gonna lie, I had to look this one up because I couldn't figure out why I hadn't gotten the trophy for killing the Great Carp. And it took me some time to really kind of think about it because I couldn't figure out why here. Why where you fought the Guardian Ape? But when you consider the layout of the Fountainhead Palace, it all leads into these waterfalls that are clearly descending down into the valley. And then you realize that they're making good on an item description from way earlier in the game that helps you find the Guardian Ape in the first place. And this is always where the Fountainhead water's pooled, but at the time you just had no frame of reference for the way that the landscape played out. What this does is really help lend a coherence to the world that they've made and really give you a sense of the geography. And that's just something that I really enjoy about these games. And this recontextualizing of the geography can actually be found all over Sekiro. Early on in the game, outside of where you fight the flaming bull, if you find the right angle, you can actually see the battleground where you fight Genichiro at the beginning of the game, as well as the Sword Saint at the end. And the cool thing about this shot is that it frames up Senpu Temple in the background, which is another location you don't yet know you're going to be going to. Another case of this that stuck out to me when replaying the game was when you exit the gun fort and you see the bridge where the Great Serpent attacks you momentarily, and you take the time to look up, and you can see the perch that you jump from to kill the Great Serpent if you take the kite from Senpu Temple across the valley. And so even though you know that these levels are contrived by the game developers to be played in this way, it lends a naturalism that makes you feel like you discover this exploit through exploration. And the last example I want to give is actually back at the Fountainhead Palace. If you stop at the cave before you fight the Divine Dragon and turn around, you can actually survey the whole of the Fountainhead Palace. And there's just a certain satisfaction in looking back and seeing the entrance to the bridge where you fought the corrupted monk and being like, man, I came a long ways. The next one is an example of how FromSoft has accounted for the non-linearity in the latter half of the game, and it takes place if you do the second Guardian Ape fight before you have gone and gotten the Mortal Blade. As we've learned the hard way, the ape can't die because it has a delicious centipede just slithering around inside of it. And so you've kind of resigned it to the fate of just having to lay here and twitch because you've cut off the head of the centipede animating the ape without the head. You can return back to this cave as many times as you want, and you're always just going to find the poor thing laying there. And so it felt almost like an obligation, or as if the only right thing to do was to come back with the Mortal Blade and put an end to the poor ape's life. Or really, to the wormy centipede thingy's life, I guess, technically. One of the last ones I want to share with you guys is just concerning the names that it seems like they've gone to a great effort to give each and every one of the bosses and mini-bosses. I'm sure none of us can forget the first time we encountered General Gyoubu.
My name is Gyoubu Masataka.
And this probably only stuck out to me because General Gyoubu's personal branding is so effective. I mean, he's kind of like hip-hop producers who have to scream their tagline at the beginning of songs so that way you know who made this fire beat.
What's that on that beat? Oh.
If young Metro don't trust you, I'm gonna shoot.
Convict.
My name is Gyoubu Masataka Oniwa. As I breathe, I will make fire beats.
Anyways, the point that I'm trying to make, besides the fact that this beat knocks, is that the name Oniwa really stuck out to me. And so I noticed it pretty quickly again on the second 7 Ashina Spears fight that you can do late in the game. And so for you lore junkies out there, I'm positing that Gyoubu and Shumei are brothers. And now I know just because they have the same name Oniwa doesn't mean they have to be related, just like the fact that Norah Jones, wouldn't be related to Tom Jones. But in this case, not only do they both have the name Oniwa, but they also use spears. So that's two things that they have in common. And I mean, come on, two things, that's just way too much to be coincidence. Wait a minute, both Norah Jones and Tom Jones are singers. Son of a...
It's not unusual to
Come away with me.
It's not unusual to
Come away with me in the night.
You know what? No, the theory is they're brothers, and I'm sticking to it. It's ironclad. It's a fact. Thank you. Also, I'm pretty sure Woo Guy is my dad. Don't you see it? The resemblance is uncanny. Wait a minute. That would also mean that Super Mario is my uncle. And hang on another minute. Wouldn't that make Toadstool my nephew? And I think that would even make Bender the Robot my alcoholic stepfather. Okay, I'll give it a rest. This joke stopped making sense a while ago.
But he just said woo.
The fact that we've gotten this far off track probably indicates that it's about time to wrap up this video. You see, I really don't want to say much more with it other than this. Sekiro is cool. I feel compelled to say this because at the height of the game's presence in the mainstream conscience, conversation about it devolved almost entirely into debates about its difficulty and easy modes. The debate felt like it sucked so much of the joy out of a game we should have been simply taking in and exploring. In my experience, the game rewarded the time I gave it. The best example I have to explain why I say this is in the fact that it took me, a good while to come to the realization that most sword-wielding enemy types will respond with a predictable counter anytime you force them to block your strike. Using this, you can bait them into a back and forth that perfectly satisfies Miyazaki's design intent for the game. In an interview at E3 2018, Miyazaki commented, "This work focuses on the clashing of swords and searching for a moment's weakness to deliver a final blow as you wear down your enemy. It's a style that fits both the Japanese and ninja aesthetics, and that serves as the foundation of this game. Accepting the trading of strikes was the single most helpful tactic I realized along the way. From made good on the continual clashing of swords in a way that I'm unsure I've experienced in another game. Some games have been accused of creating ludonarrative dissonance, but Sekiro creates ludonarrative harmony. No, a ludonarrative symphony. Or maybe this is all just ludonarrative hyperbole. The game does have its issues. It doesn't always communicate what it wants from you well, and I have no idea what they were doing gating Makiri counter behind an unlock. I can't imagine fighting this dude early on without it. And there are plenty of other details about the game's systems that you could easily criticize. I mean, we get it. The combat arts suck. This is the only good one. But that doesn't mean that there's not still a rad game to be found here. That's why I feel no hesitation to say that Sekiro is cool, and to just leave it at that. You see, I think we need less hot takes and day one reactions. I mean, do we really need to figure out if it's better than Dark Souls the week of release? I mean, Dark Souls wasn't even Dark Souls upon release. The idea that it would be the bona fide classic it is, and one of the most influential games of the past decade, was by no means obvious in 2011. Dark Souls needed time to breathe, and so does Sekiro. So, I hope this video has helped your appreciation of the game, and that you'll want to continue exploring and taking in all that it has to offer. Which leaves me with really only one thing left to say.
Take it, sleazy. And I'm out.